Sponsored by Paradigm Lost. Affordable gaming accessories with a twist.
The legend tells of 3 mystic crystals fated with lack of knowledge. Only the 3 mages, Profesor Dex from Phoenix, D20 from Cleveland, and Lore from the Forgotten Realms, have the knowledge to replenish these crystals. This is the DM Toolbox, Tales from the Edge. Hello to all of our character sheets and welcome to Tales from the Edge. As usual, taking center chair, it is D20 to my right,
Professor Dex.
to my left,
Lore.
and this is what's up today. We hyped today. We are closing in on a very special landmark. Y'all gonna find out what it is.
Absolutely.
But y'all know what it is. Because it is what it is. So we just gonna tell you what it is.
What is it?
We are coming to the conclusion of any and all information that you need to start off your first game as a DM, GM, storyteller, dungeon master, whatever you gon' call it.
Absolutely. Like, pretty much after this, after this episode, well, really the next episode, it's just going to be free form, but right now, what we got is kind of tying up all those loose ends. So today, we're going to continue the story. You just had your first game. You saw how it went. You've done some reflection on it. So what are some of the common issues that you're going to find continuing your game? What is the bane of existence for all GMs, guys?
I would probably say introducing your big bad too early.
Okay.
Scheduling.
Absolutely.
That's like the kryptonite of RPGs in general.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, if we talk about scheduling, like we said, that's what scheduling kills 97% of D&D games.
I agree 100%.
I mean, literally tonight, this afternoon, I was playing Family D&D.
Yep.
And my godson is visiting this weekend. Mm-hmm. And he got into it, and everyone was like, oh man, so you're going to play again. But his work schedule will not allow it. So it's just like,
oh man.
Yeah, so it's just like,
yep.
It ain't a monkey wrench. It just feels like such a big missed opportunity because he gelled so well. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, but life
happens,
life
man.
Schedules.
It's a nightmare. And so let's talk about some ways that we can kind of mitigate that issue. And my first suggestion is routine. If it's going to be Saturday, it's going to have to be every Saturday. I'm going to say one of the worst things. I mean, statistically speaking, most groups don't last more than 5 sessions because of scheduling issues. Mm-hmm. That's actually, there's a study that was done on that. Mm-hmm. So, honestly, the best way to do it is be like, okay, what day works the best for everyone? Assuming that you're going to have scheduling conflicts no matter what. What day works best for everybody? We like the weekends, right? So we always do Saturday. We do it right after we do a recording.
Right.
And so, honestly, I think that's the best way to mitigate a lot of the issues. Because if it's like, oh, we're going to do it Tuesday, and then we're going to do it on next Thursday, you kind of miss a rhythm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
So, like, what I do is my session 0 is the time space I want to run that game. If it is a Thursday at 7 p.m., I plan on running Thursday at 7 p.m. for the rest of ever. You know what I'm saying? We're not going to switch to Tuesdays because someone can't make it. We're not going to play Friday at 1. No, it's Thursday at 7. This is when everyone agreed to come. Yep. This is our playtime. You know what I'm saying?
100%. And that's the thing is, you see, if you played it last time, and then you're meeting again for your second game. You are concreting that routine.
Yeah. Whereas I've had instances where the DM likes to cater to individuals, and so we move our times all the time. And I'm just like, so whose game is it, and what day, and where, and what's going on?
Why? And I've learned that is like, tetanus for D&D. Because, for example, I was playing with what I call my UK boys. I literally have people in London. I'm in the Mountain Time Zone. I had somebody in the Central Time Zone. I had someone in Hawaii, and I had someone in Indonesia. And there was one spot of time that everyone could play.
It was like the magic hour.
Yes, it was just bow. There was just one spot that everyone could play. Yep. A realistic time. And then the person that started the group had to wait an extra half hour. And that was the first sign.
Yep.
That was the first sign. And then, there's a couple, hey, life got in the way, won't be able to play today. And then so there was such a close-knit group. I'm like, I would rather everyone be here as opposed to catch people up. That's just the way my brain works, because I hate being played without and have the story continue and come back to what just happened.
What just happened? Yeah.
So, because of that extra half hour, our Indonesia guy, it was hard for him because it was 3 o'clock in the morning when he was playing.
Oh my god!
So 3:30 was just too much for him. You know what I'm saying? And so.
So that's like a good red flag for when things are going down, right?
Yeah. When time started changing, and I had one campaign, I think I talked about it, where the DM, he went back to school. He was just like, "There's no way I could balance this
and school
at the same time."
And that actually brings up another good point. So when I mean routine, I really mean it. I don't So let's say somebody can't show up, right? You all need to hang out anyway. Just shoot the breeze, do whatever. Maintain that time slot, because if you don't, people aren't going to make the time for your game.
You know what? That's funny you bring that up, because I'm like, so are we going to do a hangout session, or are we just not going to meet? Because you could have like a backup character and do a one shot and just dork around, give one of your players the opportunity to hey run that one shot you wanted to do,
or play a board game, or
just have a hangout session.
Yeah,
and bullshit for a couple hours, and I feel just keep it, because like you said, you want to cement that slot of time. You
play D20's favorite game. Cards Against Humanity.
I have no input on Cards Against Humanity. This is a tabletop RPG podcast. This is a tabletop RPG podcast.
Not a review channel.
Not a review channel
of pure
hate. Problematic game companies.
Well,
with special opinions of ethnicities.
So, anyway, deflect.
That's my eyes glow red.
So, with scheduling, it's just really important to cement that in, and then to keep that routine. Because you're building a community. Let's touch back on an episode we talked about before about community. You are building a small, tiny community.
Yeah.
And if you have a culture of lateness, or if you have a culture of we only play every once in a while and everything else we just kind of blow off, that's the culture you're going to create, and it's just going to spiral out of control from that point.
Now, let me ask you this, because I have my answer for this.
Okay.
When do you bring up the subject of this is when we're going to play?
I'm going to deflect that to Laura, because I want to hear his answer first.
About when we're going to play?
Yeah.
When do you bring up the question on when we're going to play? When are you going to do the scheduling? Because some people Okay.
Oh,
go ahead.
Let him answer. Because I have my answer.
I mean, normally how it happens for me is, okay, so we sit down and as a group we talk about, we want to get together and play D&D. And at that point, that's when we talk about when we're going to play.
So you do it as a group?
Yeah.
Okay. Before your episode 0, your session 0?
Yeah. Honestly, the only session 0 I've had is with you.
Okay.
Like, a legitimate session 0.
Okay.
All the other times it's like, here, like, we're going to start playing a couple weeks from now on this day at this time. And it's going to be at this day on, those days at this time. But, we're going to take like a week or two to get characters made. And, so people have time to get, a backstory made and get a character created. And,
cool.
Like,
so you do it as a group?
Yeah, and then we might meet like the week before to like roll stats in front of whoever the DM is.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But then after that, it's, we agreed to meet at X time on Y day.
Yeah.
We just keep doing that. And then that changes because then people are like, well, I work. I don't get off until whatever time, so maybe Sundays will be better. And it's like, okay. And then they still do get off work.
See, I like to woo my players, like, I guess pardon my French here, but before I like to fuck my players, I like to take them to dinner.
I like to get wine and dine before I get fucked.
So what I do is I'll set up like a dinner or like maybe a potluck or something like that, just like a hangout.
Yeah.
If these are people I want to play a game with, honestly, I want to hang out with them first, and that's sort of what I do. And then at that time is when I establish the episode or session 0. And
so you do it as a group as well?
I do it as a group as well. If I can't do that because people's schedules can't come together, then honestly, I already have my answer. So before I even waste time on a session 0, before I even waste time, I make sure that everybody can hang out together and can be civilized together.
Yeah.
Because you want to make sure that your players mesh.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's sort of my goal. There have been a few cases where I would just kind of message everybody or text everybody to get that answer. And it just honestly, it never really worked out anyway. Mm-hmm. So
I do it during recruiting.
Yeah.
I do it during recruiting because when I set aside like, okay, Wednesdays at 3:00, 3 to 7 is when I could play. That's when I'm going to run this. Are you available Wednesdays 3 to 7 for this game? If not, then you're not playing.
Yeah.
So if because I'm going to present that time clock because I'm sorry, this is going to sound really rude. I don't give a fuck when you could play. Because it's when I can play is when I'm running the game. Oh, where my kids are they get home from school then. You know what I'm saying? That's fine and dandy. I'll put you on a wait list for when I play another time. But also, I think like a player as well. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. My brother-in-law, he had started the game right when I was ending a game. And I was late a half hour to his game all the time. And I was like, I can't keep doing this to you. Because the beginning of the session is just as important as the end. So I was like, I'm sorry, I have to jump out of your thing because I'm always a half hour late. And that's disrespectful to you and the players.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just like like a job application. You know what I'm saying? The hours I'm looking for is 9 to 5.
And that's a really DM centric. That's actually really old school. That's what it used to be. I'm doing it this day, and if you're my friend, you're going to be there, and you're going to make time to be there.
Even strangers.
That's real old school. And so I come from that era of that that sort of 3.5 era, like right at the end of 2.0 of D&D, and at that time, it was a really strange time because people at that time they didn't want to. You had to wine and dine them, basically. You had to convince people to play D&D because that shit was for nerds, that kind of stuff. And
pro nerds?
Yeah. And so, like, you had to really convince me because there was also still a lot of that satanic panic
Yeah.
Like, people are like, what is this game about? Is it about a cult? Because I heard on 60 Minutes it was about a cult. And it's like, oh my God.
It's still there, but it's just
Yeah.
like, you know, and I think I've told this story before. It's just like I was at the one this tabletop is what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
It was a game bar, and I'm running a table at a D&D night, and there was a game next to us. Okay,
All right.
They were playing, I don't know, Cards Against Humanity. I don't give a fuck what they're playing. But at the end, you know, like, they kept watching us. And when I DM, I get so hyped and so into it. You know what I'm saying? And they're like, what the hell were you guys playing that you were having so much fun? And it's like, we were just playing Dungeons and Dragons. It was like, really? And like you said, well, I heard it was this. It was just like, no, it's really fun. As you can tell, like,
You have a great example. Show our character sheets your example. What is role playing?
Oh, you asking me?
Yeah.
Let me break it down to you. All role playing is playing a video game without the controller.
All right. Well,
Instead of pushing A to jump or B to fire, you have to physically say this is what your character's doing.
well, you had a really good example with a tree. Why don't you work that out with Lauren real quick?
Laura, let me ask you a question. What's one of your favorite video games? Say Donkey Kong.
Destiny 2.
Okay, Donkey Kong. Okay, so
Same thing.
you
No, it's not. Shut up.
you at work at a construction site, okay? Your girlfriend there with you, you having lunch, and all of a sudden,
This is definitely
hear-
a fantasy.
on the news, there's an escaped gorilla. Okay, I'm sorry, your boyfriend. You having lunch with your boyfriend, and you hear on the news this escaped gorilla in Centralized Park, right where you at. And you hear doom, 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 and this gorilla just out of nowhere snatches your dude up. He's all like, "Hey, help me, oh God!"
Almost the same size. Anyway.
And jumps on the top of this newly constructed tower that you are building. Right? And you're just like, fuck! I need to get my dude down.
Well, and then it jumps on a couple times so that the beams fall.
Why are you are not the DM. You are not the DM. You are ruining the story. You are not the DM. You are the player. I'm setting up the world. So, you running around and you're just like, I need to get my boy down. And then he said, no, you're not. So he just, boom, hits the tower. One of the panels falls. Hits it again. Just bam, 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 bam. All these panels fall. And while he does that, there's a ladder that falls to the ground. What do?
Dressed in all red and blue.
A red shirt and blue overalls.
Yeah.
Hat.
Yeah.
I pick up my trusty ladder and my trusty hammer and jump over the barrels that are coming down the...
You don't know about the barrels yet! God damn!
That's metagaming! That's
metagaming! The barrels ain't come yet! But y'all get what we're getting at. All you're doing is you just describing, all the DM does is describes the scene, describes what's going on around you. You know what I'm saying? You're fishing, and you feel your ship rocking back and forth because there's something huge under the water. And then you, the player, you respond to that and say, this is what my character is doing.
Mm-hmm.
It's really just that simple. You know, yes, there's dice and rules and X, Y, and Z, but the heart of it, that's all you're doing. It's almost like a choose your own adventure story that you write yourself.
And so I have a question for you, following that up. I got
Okay.
a question. So, honestly, adventures are great. You've got plot, you've got stories. We've talked all about that.
Yes.
What about filler? Do you guys use filler?
I, as a DM, do use filler and don't use filler at the same time.
I agree with you, but please elaborate.
One thing that, like, if my players say something really interesting, like, your players give you so much information. Because they be like, oh man, I hope this place isn't haunted. It's haunted now!
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, so like as a GM, sometimes what I like to do is I like to give the players a break. And there's different kinds of breaks you can give your players and stuff, but I like the characters. Because sometimes when you're just kind of adventuring and you're just kind of hammering on the plot and that's all you're doing, it becomes more like a chore list of, well, we have to go to the town to talk to this one guy so that we can go on and talk to a different guy, and then we get. No, you don't want it to
like
be
a
like that.
checklist.
Like just give you an idea of what Professor Dex is doing. He was looking at his imaginary Pip-Boy on his arm.
So, this is what needs to be done. Check.
It seems imaginary, but only I can see it. Anyway.
I have 3D glasses.
No, I just installed the new iPhone.
Shut up.
No, so okay, well, you guys have had a really hard time getting through that dungeon. So after something that's like a big, like they just leveled up in a dungeon and it was a really hard dungeon, it was a really big plot point, I like to kind of bring it back down. You know, instead of continuously raising the stakes, which is honestly, it can get exhausting to do that, even for the players or yourself.
Yeah.
You kind of bring it back down so you can raise the stakes again.
Yeah.
This was actually a problem with a very famous anime called Dragon Ball Z.
So you bring it back down to level 1. You kill all the characters.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so, well, actually, that is a huge problem with RPG games, is the leveling. Because it makes it harder and harder to raise the stakes as you do that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, one of the ways you can kind of calm things down and then re-raise the stakes is like, you guys are going to have a celebration. Go to the nearest bar. And that's when you're going to do, like, you're still going to roll dice. But that's when you do things like, you're going to do a drinking contest. You know what I mean? Someone's going to do karaoke in the corner.
Yeah.
You know, and this is all kind of stuff that you can do for your different types of players. Like, maybe the barbarian's going to have an arm wrestling contest with the biggest dude in the bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of thing that you want to do to kind of give your players a break. And that's what I mean by filler.
I do that, like, within the story itself.
Mm-hmm.
Cause like super quick, like I had one where like there was the players I decided needed to impress the king. So each player was really good with strength, dexterity, constitution. With they hit each thing, so they had to pass a test of one of those stats. So there are 6 players. They each had their thing that they had to do. They had to win 4 of the 6.
Yep.
They lost 5 of the 6. And I panicked. I'm like, okay, they didn't win. And I was like, right on the fly, you hear cannons. The city's being invaded by the river. But it made sense of what was going on because there's 3 armies, and they're trying to impress the king. They're the ones that gain favor, so they're like, to gain my favor, you have to do the 6 things. And then, so I was like, okay, the one army said, fuck it, and they're just going to invade. So, but, like, I try to mix that monotony in with it. And it's like when I like having, like, a central location, like in the city, where there's like, get me the scaled deer for 50 gold. You know what I'm saying? My sheep have been eaten. Investigate that for 25 gold. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, there's like submissions, and then there's the main mission.
Yeah.
So it's not just hammer, level up. There's a lot of goofy, crazy shit. And that's one thing I try to do. I try to have a lot of goofy stuff in there and fun stuff in there, so it's not. And then Professor Dex appears, and he's holding a beholder. Like, no, like that's just like, okay, a little baby beholder.
Oh, a tasty snack. Sorry. So yeah, and this is also really a good place to kind of introduce new characters. So let's say there was a death in that dungeon. These kind of filler episodes is a great place for the party to meet a new character, a character that from a player who's lost their character.
Yeah.
But what other ways do you guys think you can kind of bring in new characters to the story?
To me, it's very easy.
Yeah?
To me, it's very easy.
If you got an easy answer, let Laura answer first.
Okay. Because I don't, just me personally, I don't think it's as hard as DMs make it. I feel it could be a lot simpler of an explanation of why the new player's there.
Yeah. A lot of times it's like it's a wandering mercenary, something to show up. Like,
Yep.
You're in the middle of doing something. He's like, "Oh, you need help? I'll help you. Sure, whatever."
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I base it off the context of what's going on.
Yeah.
All right, like, I mean, that's what you guys are saying.
Mm-hmm.
But what I mean to say is like, sometimes I will actually make it the very first part of my episode. I break all my games into episodes.
Yeah.
So, like, in the first part of my episode, it's going to be like, there's someone locked in a box. You have to figure that out. And it's their first thing. Their first thing is opening up this box and finding the new player in there. And they don't know how they got in there. And that's actually a good place for that character to kind of start. Like, why was I locked in a box? Why, whatever their backstory is, kind of put it into that game.
I actually do that in reverse. I actually let the new character, new player, be the star.
Yeah.
And then be like, okay, so this is what's going on. And you see a caravan of 5 individuals, you know what I'm saying, with the same insignia on their flag that, you've been seeing in your dreams. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, I'll let them have, like, a 10-minute run.
Yeah, 15 minutes of fame
yeah.
kind of thing. And I agree with that. I really agree with that because that gets your other players invested in that character.
And why that person is there.
So they're not the pariah.
Well,
just because of I've always been knowing. Shut up, fuck you.
But like one thing I know is one of my weaknesses. Like I enjoy my characters' backstories. I know that I don't ever want you guys to not make backstories for your characters.
Yep.
One weakness that I know of mine is personal story arcs.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel, and this happens every campaign, one character's backstory really gels with the campaign, and I want to use that story arc, but then I have 5 other players of the campaign who also deserve a specialized story arc. So I kind of don't do personal story arcs, and I really don't know how to.
Well, I mean, for me, that's what I like to do is personalized story arcs.
I know you do.
Now, here's the caveat for that. See, I break them up because doing them all at once is very overwhelming. So what I usually do is I will be like, all right, these 3 episodes, I'm going to focus on this character story arc. And I might introduce a villain that might be that character's brother.
Yeah.
Right? But they don't know that.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, I have amnesia, or my family died in a fire. It's like, well, not your brother.
Yeah.
You don't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You think they all died in a fire, but you left your brother for dead.
Uh-huh.
Or at least that's what he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the shit that I'll just pull out of my butt.
See, you're good at that. You're I'm seriously, you're good. Like, I know that's one of my weaknesses. Mm-hmm. And I just, I don't know if it's, as a player, because I think one of my advantages is being a DM thinking like a player, being a player thinking like a DM. Is I don't want to be called out, and I don't want to be felt like I'm more important than the other players.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it would be cool if my character had something personal to do in the story. Like, for example, my first campaign that I did, he was on the hunt for orcs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 1 year. Not a single orc. I can have 1 orc.
Well, so, and that's actually another thing to bring up, though, is that not all players are going to want a story based around that.
Yes.
So
And
the artificer might be like, I'm trying to build a car, and I'm like, that's going to take a long time and a lot of money. And like, oh, well, every episode I'm going to be like, well, you just built the transmission.
Okay.
Out of the parts that you found in this dungeon.
Okay.
And then, you know, that's kind of the way I like to bring it. I like to sort of, some characters, they have a goal that they're accomplishing over the whole campaign.
Yeah.
And at the end of the campaign, you guys have a car that you're riding up on the castle with instead of like horses and stuff. You got like a tank going on, you know, something like that.
Yeah, and it's usually my backstory is, why am I questing? Why am I questing? Why
am I doing this?
Why am I questing? You know, like I had a pirate girl. She and her sister had a 2-person, thieves guild. You know what I'm saying? Right. And so she took her sister's rapier and wanted to fight in the name of her sister. Like it ended there. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I do. So it's just like. It's one of those voices in the back of my head that's just like, maybe you can make this a little more cooler. I just don't know how to. So that's one episode that I hope we do in the future. How to, fairly utilize everyone's backstory. But it's just like, when you have like 2, 3, 4 people, it's a lot easier than when you have 7 or 8.
Yeah, and honestly, what we're talking about is like more advanced DMing techniques as well. Like I don't want our character sheets to kind of come into this episode thinking that this is what they have to do. Yeah. This is like after you've gotten a couple one-shots out.
Yeah, this is
your system.
This is when you buy your like 18th pair of dice
from ParadigmLostStore.com. I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
What?
No shameless plug here. What are you talking about? But yeah, this is when, as a DM or as a GM, you're going to be starting to buy things like the Monster Manual too. You're gonna be buying all these like little books that aren't even official like Wizards of the Coast stuff, because what you want to do is you want to have a bunch of stuff you can rely on, like at any moment, be able to pull it out of your hat.
Yeah.
And so, I think one more advanced kind of GMing thing I'd like to talk about, because I really would like to save the advanced stuff for maybe like a different podcast, but like crossover stories. So what I mean by crossover stories is that after a while, once you've been GMing for a while, I mean, I'd say maybe a year or two, you're gonna start like rerunning stuff, because you're like, man, like I played this with this one group and it was really great. I want to see how this group does it.
Yeah.
And so